Wife attended her husband's wedding with her daughter. Girl exclaimed, "Mom!" Shocking audience. Hi, my beautiful story readers family. Welcome to Mr. Peter Stories. Beautiful people are not always good, but good people are always beautiful. And let me tell you, you are not just good, you are extraordinary. You fill my world with love and kindness, and I'm endlessly grateful for each one of you. Yesterday, I was overwhelmed by the flood of your heartfelt comments. Reading them made me feel so proud and blessed to have a family like you, a family that stands by me, supports me, and shares this incredible journey together. You make my world brighter, and I can't thank you enough for your endless support. How did you enjoy the last story? I can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments because your words mean everything to me. Now, my dear friends, let's move forward with today's journey. Today, we'll be talking about something close to my heart, yoga. Let's proceed with love and positivity. The San Francisco Tech Summit buzzed with the energy of innovation, its gleaming halls filled with the world's brightest minds. Yet even among this gathering of tech titans and visionaries, Madeline Ross commanded attention. Her presence on the main stage was magnetic, her brilliant mind matched by an elegance that made her stand out among the sea of casual Silicon Valley attire. Quantum computing isn't just about processing power, she declared, her voice carrying through the packed auditorium. It's about democratizing access to computational resources that can solve humanity's greatest challenges. Her ivory power suit complemented her rich mahogany skin perfectly, while the subtle golden threads woven through her elaborate box braids caught the light like circuits on a quantum processor. In the third row, Anson Gordon sat transfixed. As the founder of Quantum Leap Technologies, he'd attended countless tech presentations, but something about Dr. Ross was different. It wasn't just her groundbreaking work in quantum neural networks, though that alone was revolutionary. It was the passion in her voice when she spoke about using technology to lift up underserved communities, the way her eyes lit up when describing quantum possibilities. Their eyes met across the crowded auditorium, and something shifted in the universe, like quantum particles falling into perfect alignment. Anson found himself leaning forward, drinking in every word, every gesture. Her brilliant mind was redrawing the maps of what was possible in quantum computing, but it was her vision of technology as a force for good that resonated with his own dreams. After her presentation, he waited patiently as eager investors and fellow scientists swarmed around her. When the crowd finally thinned, he approached, his heart racing in a way that had nothing to do with business prospects. "Dr. Ross," he said, extending his hand, "I'm Anson Gordon. Your work on quantum neural networks is absolutely groundbreaking." Her handshake was firm, confident. Up close, he noticed the subtle sparkle of diamond studs in her ears and the warmth in her eyes that the stage lights hadn't captured. "Mr. Gordon," she replied with a knowing smile. "Quantum Leap's work on democratizing quantum computing access is equally impressive. Breaking down barriers seems to be a shared passion." "Please call me Anson," he said, running a hand through his slightly disheveled black hair. "I have about 1,000 questions about your approach to quantum decoherence. Would you consider discussing them over coffee?" Madeline glanced at her phone, lit up with meeting notifications. She had investors waiting, deals to close, but something about Anson Gordon made those meetings feel suddenly less important. "Coffee sounds perfect," she heard herself say. They found sanctuary in the conference center's exclusive cafe, where their conversation flowed like quantum particles, impossible to predict, impossible to contain. Technical discussion about neural networks morphed into shared passions for jazz, debates about space exploration, and dreams of using technology to lift up underserved communities. "The real tragedy," Anson said, gesturing passionately with his espresso cup, is watching brilliant minds waste away because they lack access to the tools they need. That's why I started Quantum Leap, to put quantum computing power in the hands of those who could never afford it otherwise. That's exactly why I focused my research on neural networks, Madeline replied, leaning forward eagerly. Imagine if we could combine your accessibility platform with my optimization algorithms. We could reduce the computational resources needed by orders of magnitude, make quantum computing available to even the smallest research institutions. Hours evaporated like morning dew. The cafe staff had begun dimming lights when reality intruded via their phones. Both had missed entire afternoons of appointments. I missed the keynote panel I was supposed to chair, Anson admitted with a laugh that crinkled his eyes in a way that made Madeline's heart stutter. I missed 4 investor meetings, she countered, finding herself smiling despite the professional faux pas. My assistant probably thinks I've been kidnapped. Their fingers brushed as they exchanged contact information, and the spark between them was undeniable. Their eyes met, and the professional veneer melted away, leaving something raw and real in its wake. I'm often in San Francisco, Madeline said softly. Perhaps we could continue this discussion over dinner next time. I'd love that, Anson replied, his smile lighting up his entire face. Though I should warn you, my interests extend far beyond quantum mechanics. Security finally shooed them out of the building. Outside, the fog had transformed the city into a magical realm of soft-edged light and infinite possibility. A sleek black Tesla purred up to the curb, his ride. It was a pleasure meeting you, Dr. Ross, he said, his voice carrying an undertone that made her shiver. Madeline, she corrected him with a smile. I think we're well past formalities. His laugh seemed to linger in the mist between them. Good night, Madeline. I'm looking forward to our next quantum entanglement. As his car disappeared into the ethereal fog, Madeline remained on the steps, her heart racing with possibilities. In her world of quantum probability, where particles could exist in multiple states simultaneously, she had just experienced something gloriously, terrifyingly certain. She lifted her face to the fog-draped sky, feeling like her life had shifted into a new dimension of possibility. The brilliant Dr. Ross, who could solve complex quantum algorithms in her sleep, found herself facing an equation she hadn't anticipated, the sudden, undeniable certainty that she had just met someone who would change her life forever. The quantum computing conference would continue for 3 more days, but its most significant outcome had already occurred. 2 brilliant minds had found their matching frequency, 2 hearts had begun their journey toward entanglement, and the foundation had been laid for a love story that would defy every conventional probability. Chapter 2. Whirlwind Romance. The sleek private jet cut through clouds as it soared across the country, but Madeline Ross barely noticed the luxury surrounding her. Her attention was fixed on the latest video call with Anson Gordon, their 5th that day. Since their meeting at the San Francisco Tech Summit 2 months ago, distance had proven no barrier to their growing connection. The quantum neural network trials exceeded all expectations, Madeline explained, her eyes shining with excitement. We've achieved coherence times that were thought impossible. Just like us, Anson responded, his green eyes twinkling even through the digital connection, defying all conventional probability. Their romance had blossomed at quantum speed, yet every moment felt destined. Between her groundbreaking research in New York and his revolutionizing quantum accessibility in Silicon Valley, they orchestrated a coast-to-coast courtship that redefined modern love. Cross-country flights became their normal, their respective teams learning to schedule around their romantic rendezvous. In New York, Anson would surprise her with midnight visits to her quantum lab, bringing gourmet coffee and brilliant solutions to computational problems. In San Francisco, Madeline would appear unannounced at Quantum Leap's headquarters, her insights transforming their accessibility protocols. "You've ruined me for ordinary dating," Anson declared during one of their impromptu rooftop dinners overlooking the Manhattan skyline. "How am I supposed to settle for regular conversation when I've experienced quantum entanglement of the heart?" Their shared passion for democratizing technology sparked innovative collaborations. Together, they developed a revolutionary quantum cloud platform, making advanced computing accessible to underserved communities. Their joint presentations at tech conferences became legendary, their intellectual chemistry as palpable as their romantic connection. "We're not just changing the tech world," Madeline said during one late-night video call. "We're proving that brilliance knows no boundaries." Their families watched with joy as the relationship deepened. Grandma Rose declared Anson heaven sent after he spent hours helping her understand quantum computing, using her quilting patterns as analogies. Anson's mother, who had sacrificed everything for his education, cried happy tears when Madeline surprised her with perfectly pronounced Tagalog endearments, having secretly taken intensive language lessons. 3 months into their whirlwind romance, during a quantum computing demonstration at MIT, Anson couldn't contain his feelings anymore. As Madeline brilliantly explained quantum decoherence to a packed auditorium, he interrupted her presentation. "I apologize for this unconventional variable in today's demonstration," he said, stepping onto the stage. "But Dr. Ross has taught me that the most beautiful discoveries often come from unexpected quantum fluctuations." Dropping to one knee before a gasping audience, he produced a ring unlike any other. The center stone was an engineered quantum dot that shifted colors like probability waves, set in a platinum band engraved with the equations that had brought them together. "Madeline Ross, you've revolutionized not just quantum computing, but the very definition of love. Every moment with you proves that some connections transcend ordinary physics. Will you marry me?" Madeline's brilliant mind, capable of solving complex quantum algorithms in seconds, needed no time to calculate this answer. "Yes," she declared, pulling him up into a kiss that made the audience erupt in applause. "In this universe and every parallel reality," the engagement announcement sent shockwaves through the tech world. "Quantum computing's power couple unite," the headlines declared. But Anson and Madeline barely noticed the media frenzy. They were too busy planning their future, designing their dream home in the Silicon Valley Hills, a perfect blend of cutting-edge technology and warm family spaces. "The East Wing will be our quantum research lab," Anson mused as they reviewed architectural plans. "And the library needs to be huge," Madeline added, "for all our future little quantum physicists." Their engagement party brought together the brightest minds in technology with their closest family members. Grandma Rose taught Anson's mother traditional Southern recipes while sharing stories of Madeline's childhood experiments. Their fathers, both respected scientists, debated the philosophical implications of quantum consciousness while their mothers planned wedding details. As the sun set over Silicon Valley, Anson found Madeline in their future home's construction site, standing where their quantum lab would be. Pulling her close, he whispered, "6 months ago, I thought I knew everything about quantum probability. Then you walked into that conference hall and proved that the most beautiful equations can't predict the power of love." "Speaking of equations," Madeline smiled, turning in his arms, "I've calculated the exact date for our wedding. 3 months from today, when the cherry blossoms are in full bloom." "Perfect timing," Anson agreed, kissing her softly. "Though I must warn you, marrying you will make our quantum entanglement legally binding in all possible universes." Madeline laughed, the sound echoing through their future home. "I love you, my quantum romantic." "And I love you, my brilliant star," he replied, holding her close as the stars began to appear above their dream home. "Together, we'll not only change the world of quantum computing, We'll show everyone that love is the most powerful force in any reality." As night fell over Silicon Valley, they stood wrapped in each other's arms, planning their future. In just 3 short months, they would exchange vows under a canopy of cherry blossoms, their love proving that some connections transcend time, space, and every known law of physics. Chapter 3. Dream Wedding. Cherry blossoms danced on the spring breeze like nature's confetti, transforming the exclusive Silicon Valley estate into an ethereal wonderland. In the luxurious bridal suite, Madeline stood before a floor-length mirror, her heart performing complex quantum calculations of joy and anticipation. The wedding dress was a masterpiece of modern elegance and timeless grace, ivory silk that seemed to float like quantum particles, hand-beaded with thousands of microscopic crystals that caught the light like stars in motion. "Sweet Jesus in heaven," Grandma Rose breathed, adjusting the cathedral-length train with trembling hands. "You look like an angel touched down on earth." The designer had incorporated traditional African patterns subtly into the beadwork, honoring Madeline's heritage while creating something uniquely contemporary. Her mother, Dr. Catherine Ross, approached with the family's ancestral pearls. "Something old," she whispered, fastening them around Madeline's neck. The pearls had been passed down through generations of strong women, each one pushing boundaries in their own way. "Your great-grandmother wore these when she married, at a time when our people could barely dream of the opportunities you have now. She'd be so proud to see you today, brilliant, beautiful, and marrying for love." Jade, who had evolved from assistant to dear friend, carefully adjusted Madeline's elaborate crown of braids, where delicate cherry blossoms had been woven among the plaits. "The quantum computing world is buzzing," she grinned. "They're calling it the merger of the century. Quantum Leap's visionary founder and the revolutionary Dr. Ross joining forces." "Let them talk," Madeline smiled, touching the pearls at her throat. "They see the business implications, but they don't see what matters." How his eyes light up when he talks about making technology accessible to everyone. How he spends hours teaching quantum physics to my grandmother, using her quilting patterns as examples. How he believes in my dreams as much as his own. A soft knock heralded the arrival of Anson's mother, Maria Gordon, carrying a small velvet box. "Anak," she said softly, using the Tagalog term of endearment Madeline had grown to love. Inside the box was a delicate gold bracelet studded with tiny sapphires. "This was my mother's and her mother's before her. Now it belongs to my beautiful daughter." The fact that she could say these words in perfect Tagalog, thanks to Madeline's secret language studies, made tears spring to Maria's eyes. The wedding planner appeared, tablet in hand. "Dr. Ross, we're ready whenever you are. And may I say—" She paused, her professional demeanor cracking with genuine emotion. "I've never seen a more beautiful bride or a more anxious groom." Madeline's heart fluttered. She had insisted on following the tradition of not seeing each other before the ceremony, though Anson had tried to convince her that quantum entanglement meant they were never truly apart. His text messages throughout the morning had made her laugh and fall in love all over again. "T-3 hours until I get to marry the most brilliant woman in any quantum reality. Is it cheating if I use quantum tunneling to skip ahead to our first kiss as husband and wife? Your father just gave me a lecture on treating his quantum star right. I promised him I'd dedicate my life to being worthy of you." Her father, Dr. James Ross, appeared at the door, looking dashing in his tuxedo, but with suspiciously red-rimmed eyes. "My quantum star," he managed, voice thick with emotion, "ready to change another fundamental constant of the universe." The ceremony space took Madeline's breath away as her father led her toward it. The estate's grand courtyard had been transformed into a wonderland where science met romance. Cherry blossom petals danced on the breeze, creating a natural canopy over the gathered guests. The aisle was lined with quantum blue mystique orchids, the same variety Anson had given her on their first date. A string quartet played an elegant arrangement of their song, Miles Davis's Blue in Green. Then she saw him, and the world seemed to shift into perfect clarity. Anson stood at the altar, devastatingly handsome in his bespoke tuxedo, but it was his expression that brought tears to her eyes. He looked at her like she was every dream he'd ever had coming true at once, like she was the solution to the universe's greatest equation. As their eyes met, a single tear rolled down his cheek. Their vows were a perfect blend of their two worlds, poetry and physics, love and logic, dreams and determination. "Madeline," Anson began, his voice carrying clearly across the hushed garden, "before I met you, I thought I understood the nature of reality. I had equations for everything, explanations for every phenomenon. Then you walked into that conference hall and proved that some things transcend mathematical modeling. Like the way my heart recognizes yours across any distance. Like the certainty I feel about spending every remaining moment of my life with you." He continued, emotion making his voice rich and deep. "I promise to be your partner in all things, in changing the world, in breaking barriers, in building dreams. I promise to love you through every quantum state, every probability wave, every moment of this amazing journey we're beginning. You are my constant in an uncertain universe, my true north in every reality." Madeline's voice trembled as she began her own vows. "Anson, you came into my life like a quantum leap, sudden, revolutionary, and exactly what I never knew I was missing. You see me completely, the scientist and the dreamer, the professional and the woman who still dances in her lab when experiments succeed." Her voice grew stronger as she continued, "I promise to be your partner in all adventures, your support in all challenges, your home in all realities. I promise to love you through every success and setback, to build our dreams together, to face whatever comes with the certainty that together we can solve any equation life presents. You are my perfect wavelength, my matching frequency, my heart's own quantum entanglement." As they exchanged rings, his a band of black titanium inlaid with quantum dot technology that made it shimmer with hidden colors. Hers a delicate platinum creation that echoed the patterns of electron orbital paths. The sun broke through the cherry blossom canopy, bathing them in golden light. "By the power vested in me," the officiant smiled, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Anson pulled her close, whispering, "Every reality, every lifetime, every moment, yours," before kissing her with a passion that made the guests burst into applause and cheers. The reception was a magnificent blend of cultures and traditions. They had their first dance to a live performance of Blue in Green, floating across the floor as if gravity had taken a holiday. The quantum mystique orchids glowed softly as evening fell, creating an otherworldly atmosphere under the stars. During the father-daughter dance, Dr. James Ross held his daughter close. "Your mother and I worried you'd never find someone who could keep up with you intellectually while treasuring your heart," he confessed. "We should have known you'd find someone who defies all conventional probability." The celebrations continued late into the night. Anson and Madeline shared quiet moments between dances, stealing kisses and whispering private jokes about quantum superposition and probability waves. The joy radiating from them seemed to infect everyone present. Competitors in the tech world set aside rivalries to celebrate. Scientists and dreamers found common ground on the dance floor. As the evening drew to a close, they slipped away from the party to a private balcony overlooking the illuminated gardens. The cherry blossoms glowed silver in the moonlight, creating a magical curtain around them. "Mrs. Gordon," Anson murmured, pulling her close. "Or should I say Doctor?" "Gordon Ross." I like the sound of both," Madeline smiled, leaning into his embrace. "Though I'm keeping Ross professionally. Can't let the quantum computing world forget who solved the decoherence problem." "As if anyone could forget you," he laughed, spinning her gently under the moonlight. "You know what this means, don't you? Now that we're officially married." "What's that?" "Our quantum entanglement is legally binding in all possible universes." Madeline laughed, the sound pure joy. "I love you, you quantum romantic." "I love you too, my brilliant star," he whispered, capturing her lips in a kiss that felt like the beginning of their greatest adventure yet. "Ready to change the world together." "With you?" She smiled against his lips. "I'm ready for anything." As they returned to the reception for their grand exit, rose petals and cherry blossoms raining down around them, Madeline felt a certainty deeper than any mathematical proof. Their love was like a quantum phenomenon, impossible to fully explain, yet absolutely real and transformative. Together, they would revolutionize not just the world of quantum computing, but the very essence of what was possible when brilliant minds and loving hearts worked in perfect harmony. They ran through the tunnel of cheering guests to where Anson's Tesla waited, now decorated with streams of quantum blue orchids and trailing ribbons. As they drove away toward their honeymoon suite, Madeline looked at her new husband and saw their future unfolding like a perfect equation, filled with adventure, discovery, love, and the certainty that together they could achieve the impossible. Chapter 4. Early Bliss. The morning sun painted golden patterns across their bed in the stunning Silicon Valley mansion, its rays catching the quantum dot in Madeline's engagement ring and creating miniature rainbows on the wall. She stretched languidly, watching Anson as he practiced his upcoming TED Talk in front of their bedroom's floor-to-ceiling windows. "The future isn't just about processing power," he gestured passionately, his reflection multiplied in the glass like parallel universes of the same perfect moment. "It's about ensuring brilliant minds everywhere have access to the tools they need. Quantum computing shouldn't be a luxury. It should be as accessible as electricity." Madeline smiled, admiring how the sunrise highlighted his aristocratic features. Even after 6 months of marriage, watching him speak with such passion about democratizing technology still made her heart race. "Don't forget to mention our new quantum cloud platform," she suggested. "How we've made it available to universities in developing nations at 1/10 of the market rate." Anson turned, treating her to that brilliant smile that never failed to weaken her knees. "This is why I married you. That brilliant mind that never stops innovating." He crossed to the bed, sitting beside her. "Though I have to admit, your mind wasn't the only thing that convinced me." She laughed as he pulled her into a playful kiss, but the moment was interrupted by a sudden wave of nausea. Madeline bolted for their luxurious marble bathroom, making it just in time. Anson was right behind her, holding her braids back with one hand and rubbing soothing circles on her back with the other. "That's the 3rd morning this week," he said softly, concern evident in his voice. "Should we call Doctor?" "Chen." Madeline sat back against the cool tiles, accepting the warm washcloth he offered. Her heart raced with a different kind of excitement now. "I don't think we need to," she whispered, taking his hand and placing it over her still flat stomach. "I think we just need to wait about 7 more months." The transformation of Anson's expression was something she would treasure forever. Confusion giving way to dawning realization, followed by pure incandescent joy. We're... He couldn't even finish the sentence before gathering her into his arms, peppering her face with kisses. "I took 3 tests yesterday," she confirmed, happy tears mixing with laughter. all positive. Our quantum experiment seems to have produced unexpected results. A baby, Anson breathed, his hand still protectively covering her stomach. Our baby. A perfect combination of your brilliance and my determination. Don't forget your eyes, Madeline smiled, touching his cheek. I'm hoping for those impossible green eyes. Their first year of marriage had already been a whirlwind of success and joy. Quantum Leap's global accessibility initiative had transformed the technology landscape, while Madeline's breakthroughs in quantum neural networks had earned her the prestigious Turing Award. Together, they had revolutionized everything from climate change modeling to medical research. But this tiny quantum possibility growing inside her, was their greatest collaboration yet. The next hours were a blur of joy, plans, and shared dreams. They called their families. Grandma Rose cried and immediately began planning a baby quilt, while Maria launched into Filipino lullabies she would teach her grandchild. Their parents, both sets of doctors, began cheerfully arguing about whether the baby would follow the physics or medical path. Later that evening, as they cuddled on their vast balcony overlooking the Bay Area lights, reality began to set in. We'll need to child-proof the quantum lab in the basement, Anson mused, his hand never leaving Madeline's stomach. And maybe convert the East Wing library into a nursery. It has the best morning light. And it's close to our room, Madeline agreed, then hesitated. Anson, there's something else we need to discuss. The New York Quantum Research Center offered me the director position again. She felt him tense slightly behind her. The prestigious position had been a point of discussion before. It would mean moving across the country, away from Quantum Leap's headquarters. When would they need an answer? He asked carefully. Within the month. I know it's complicated with the baby coming, but this could be revolutionary. They're working on quantum applications in medicine. Imagine being able to model complex diseases at the molecular level. Find cures that would take traditional computing decades to discover. Anson was quiet for a long moment, his breath warm against her neck. You know, I'll support whatever you want to do, he finally said. You're the most brilliant scientist I know. If anyone can revolutionize medical research through quantum computing, it's you. But, she prompted, hearing the hesitation in his voice, but Quantum Leap is at a critical phase. We're about to launch the global quantum network. I need to be here to oversee it. He turned her gently to face him. Would you consider running the medical research division here? We could build you a state-of-the-art facility, recruit the best minds in the field. The offer was tempting. Working together had always been one of their greatest joys, their minds in perfect sync as they pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Yet something in Madeline yearned for the challenge of building something entirely her own. Let's sleep on it, she suggested, seeing the worry lines forming between his brows. Tonight is for celebrating our little quantum particle. His smile returned full force. Speaking of which, he disappeared into their bedroom, returning with a small wrapped package. I was saving this for your birthday next week, but it seems appropriate now. Inside the box was a delicate gold necklace bearing a pendant in the shape of an electron orbital path. At its center was a perfectly engineered quantum dot that shifted colors like the northern lights. It's the first successful room-temperature quantum dot we created together, Anson explained softly. I had it set in the pendant as a reminder of what we can achieve when we combine our brilliance. Now it can also represent the new life we've created. Tears sprang to Madeline's eyes as he fastened the necklace around her throat. I love you, she whispered, turning to kiss him deeply. Both the scientist and the romantic. And I love all of you, he replied, his hand finding her stomach again. The brilliant Dr. Gordon Ross, my beautiful wife, and now the mother of our child. You are my greatest discovery in any quantum reality. Later that night, as Anson slept peacefully beside her, Madeline stood at their bedroom windows, looking out over the glittering bay. One hand rested on her stomach, the other toyed with her new necklace. The quantum dot caught the moonlight, its colors shifting like the possibilities swirling in her mind. The New York position beckoned with its promise of independence and innovation. Yet as she watched Anson's reflection in the window, his face peaceful in sleep, she felt the pull of their shared dreams. They had always been strongest together, their minds working in perfect synchronization to solve impossible problems. Her free hand drifted to a hidden folder in her desk, the preliminary designs for a revolutionary quantum-based medical imaging system she'd been developing in secret. Perhaps there was a way to pursue her dreams without leaving California, to build something unprecedented right here at Quantum Leap. The baby would need both parents present during those crucial early years, and watching Anson's excitement about impending fatherhood had awakened something deep in her heart, a desire to build not just their professional legacy, but their personal one as well. As she climbed back into bed, Anson instinctively pulled her close, his hand finding her stomach even in sleep. Madeline smiled, knowing that some equations solved themselves when you gave them time. Together, they would find a way to balance their dreams, their careers, and their growing family. After all, they had already proven that love was the most powerful force in any quantum reality. What was one more impossible problem for the couple who had revolutionized the world of quantum computing? The future stretched before them like an infinite probability wave, full of possibilities and promise. And at that moment, cradled in her husband's arms, with their miracle growing inside her, Madeline knew with mathematical certainty that they would calculate the perfect solution, together. Chapter 5. Luna's Arrival. The quantum computing lab in the basement of the Gordon Ross mansion hummed with the soft purr of next-generation processors, but Madeline's attention was focused on something far more miraculous than technological breakthroughs. Standing before the holographic display, one hand resting on her now prominent belly, she watched in amazement as their quantum-enhanced ultrasound technology rendered their daughter in stunning detail. "Look at those tiny fingers," Anson breathed, his arms wrapped around her from behind, already reaching out like she wants to type quantum algorithms. The pregnancy had transformed their home into a perfect fusion of nursery and laboratory. The East Wing's former library now housed both cutting-edge medical research equipment and a beautifully appointed baby room, its walls painted with constellations that glowed softly in the dark. Anson had insisted on installing quantum dot lighting that could simulate everything from sunrise to northern lights, claiming their daughter deserved nothing less than the most advanced technology from her first breath. It was during one of these late-night lab sessions, as they fine-tuned their revolutionary medical imaging system, that the first contractions began. Madeline had been explaining a complex calculation when she suddenly gripped the edge of the workstation, her breath catching. "Madeline." Anson was instantly alert, his hand finding her lower back. "Is it time?" She nodded, managing a smile despite the intensity of the contraction. "Your daughter seems to have perfect timing, choosing to arrive just as we've achieved stable quantum coherence in the imaging system." Their carefully prepared birth plan sprang into action. While Anson called their private medical team, Madeline took a moment to look around their lab, knowing the next time she stood here, they would be 3 instead of 2. The quantum processors hummed their familiar lullaby, as if saying goodbye to their pregnant programmer and waiting to welcome her back as a mother. The drive to the exclusive medical center was surreal. Madeline watched the San Francisco lights blur past their Tesla's windows, each contraction bringing them closer to meeting their daughter. Anson held her hand, his thumb tracing soothing patterns on her palm while he simultaneously coordinated with their families via the car's AI system. Quantum physics never prepared me for this kind of uncertainty principle, Madeline joked between contractions, earning a loving laugh from her husband. The medical center's VIP suite had been prepared to their exact specifications, incorporating some of their own quantum medical innovations. Dr. Sarah Chen, their chosen obstetrician and longtime friend, greeted them with calm confidence. "Ready to meet this little quantum physicist?" She smiled, checking Madeline's progress. "She's already showing perfect timing and precision." The hours that followed tested every ounce of Madeline's legendary focus and determination. Through each contraction, Anson was her constant, his voice grounding her when the pain threatened to overwhelm. He whispered quantum equations in her ear, their special language of love, and reminded her of the miracle they were about to meet. Their families arrived in waves. Grandma Rose set up camp in the waiting room, her knitting needles clicking as she worked on a complex pattern that she claimed represented quantum entanglement in yarn form. Maria Gordon paced the halls, alternating between prayers in Tagalog and calling every relative in the Philippines to update them on her Apo's imminent arrival. As dawn approached, painting the San Francisco sky in shades of pearl and gold, Madeline felt something shift. The contractions intensified, and Dr. Chen announced it was time to push. Anson moved behind her on the birthing bed, supporting her as she gathered her strength for the final phase of their daughter's journey into the world. "Remember when we solved the decoherence problem?" he murmured in her ear. "You said impossible just means we haven't found the right approach yet. You've got this, my brilliant star." With one final, tremendous effort, Madeline brought their daughter into the world. The room filled with the strong, clear cry of new life, and time seemed to stop as Dr. Chen placed the tiny bundle on Madeline's chest. "Hello, Luna," Madeline whispered, tears streaming down her face as she counted perfect fingers and toes. "We've been waiting so long to meet you." Anson's hands trembled as he touched their daughter's cheek. "She's beautiful," he breathed. "Look at those eyes. They're exactly like yours, Madeline. So bright and curious." Luna Gordon Ross had indeed inherited her mother's striking dark eyes, set in a perfect face that blended both her parents' features. Her skin was a beautiful caramel tone, and despite being minutes old, she already had a full head of black curls. "She's going to be brilliant," Dr. Chen declared as she completed the newborn checks. "Perfect APGAR scores, strong vital signs, and look at how alert she is already." The families were invited in to meet the newest member of the Gordon Ross dynasty. Grandma Rose took one look at Luna and burst into happy tears, immediately declaring that the baby blanket she'd been knitting would need additional quantum patterns to be worthy of such perfection. Maria covered her granddaughter in gentle kisses, whispering Filipino blessings and promises of future adventures. Dr. James Ross, examining his granddaughter through tears of joy, declared that her cranial structure suggested an exceptional capacity for mathematical thinking. His wife, Dr. Catherine Ross, simply held Luna close and hummed the same lullabies she had once sung to Madeline. As the morning progressed, their private suite filled with quantum blue mystique orchids, Anson's signature gift, now repurposed to welcome their daughter. Each arrangement came with notes from the global scientific community, welcoming the child of quantum computing's power couple. "The next generation of innovation," read one card from a famous tech pioneer. "May she change the world like her parents before her." But Madeline and Anson barely noticed the flowers or messages. Their world had narrowed to the perfect miracle in their arms. Luna nursed like a champion, her tiny hand wrapped firmly around her father's finger as she fed. "I never knew," Anson said softly, watching their daughter sleep in Madeline's arms, "that love could expand like this. It's like discovering a whole new dimension of reality." "Quantum love," Madeline smiled tiredly. It doesn't divide when shared. It multiplies exponentially. That night, after the visitors had gone and the medical center had quieted, the new family of three shared their first peaceful moments together. Luna slept soundly in her clear hospital bassinet, which Anson had already enhanced with quantum dot lighting to match her circadian rhythms. "Thank you," he whispered to Madeline, who was finally getting some rest herself, "for making every one of my dreams come true, and then giving me dreams I never knew I had." The next day, they brought Luna home to the mansion that had been prepared so lovingly for her arrival. The Quantum Lab's AI system played a specially composed lullaby as they entered, its melody based on the mathematical pattern of their daughter's heartbeat. The nursery was a wonderland of technology and comfort. Traditional baby furniture blended seamlessly with cutting-edge monitoring systems. The constellation-painted walls glowed softly, creating a perfect environment for their little star. "Welcome home, Luna," Madeline said softly, placing their sleeping daughter in her crib. "To a world of infinite possibilities." Anson wrapped his arms around her waist as they watched Luna sleep. "We're going to need to child-proof the quantum processors," he mused. "Something tells me she'll be crawling toward them as soon as she's mobile." "Like mother, like daughter," Madeline laughed quietly, "though perhaps we should wait until she's at least walking before we start her quantum computing lessons." The first weeks of Luna's life passed in a blur of midnight feedings, quantum lullabies, and endless wonder at every tiny development. Both Madeline and Anson took extended leaves from their professional duties, determined to treasure every moment of their daughter's early life. They quickly discovered that Luna had inherited both their intelligence and determination. Her dark eyes tracked everything with extraordinary focus for a newborn, and she showed an early preference for the sound of quantum processors over traditional white noise machines. "She's going to revolutionize quantum computing before she's out of diapers," Anson predicted proudly, watching Luna react to the lights in her nursery. "Look how she follows the quantum dot patterns." Madeline, watching her husband and daughter together, felt her heart expand with impossible love. Anson had taken to fatherhood as brilliantly as he approached everything else, spending hours explaining complex scientific concepts to Luna in baby talk, designing increasingly sophisticated monitoring systems for her comfort, and somehow anticipating their daughter's needs even before she cried. Yet as the weeks passed, subtle tensions began to surface. The quantum medical imaging system they'd developed was gaining worldwide attention, and investors were clamoring for meetings. Madeline's research team in New York kept sending increasingly urgent requests for her input on breakthrough developments. "I could handle some of the meetings," Anson offered one night as they watched Luna sleep. "You should focus on recovery and bonding with Luna." "I'm not an invalid," Madeline replied, a hint of frustration creeping into her voice. "I can manage both my daughter and my career." "Of course you can," he backtracked quickly. "I just meant—" But what he meant was left unsaid as Luna stirred in her crib, demanding their attention. The moment passed, but something subtle had shifted, like a quantum state disturbed by observation. As Luna approached her first month of life, Madeline found herself standing in their quantum lab late one night, her daughter sleeping peacefully in a carrier against her chest. The processors hummed their familiar song, and Luna smiled in her sleep, already attuned to the rhythm of innovation that had brought her parents together. "Your daddy and I created something revolutionary here," Madeline whispered to her sleeping daughter. "And now we've created something even more miraculous. You." Luna's tiny hand flexed in sleep, reaching up toward the quantum dot pendant that still hung at her mother's throat. The colors shifted and swirled, matching the complexity of emotions in Madeline's heart. Love beyond measure for her daughter, passion for her work, and a growing awareness that balancing these two quantum states might prove to be her greatest challenge yet. But as she looked down at Luna's perfect face, Madeline knew that some equations solve themselves in unexpected ways. Perhaps the true test of their quantum entanglement would not be in the lab or the boardroom, but in finding harmony between their professional brilliance and their most important collaboration, being Luna's parents. The sun rose over Silicon Valley, painting the quantum lab in shades of possibility. Luna stirred against her mother's chest, opening those brilliant dark eyes to a world that had been forever changed by her arrival. And in that moment, watching her daughter greet another day, Madeline understood that their greatest adventure was just beginning. Chapter 6. The First Cracks. The first quantum fracture appeared on an ordinary Tuesday. Madeline stood in their basement lab, staring at an email from MIT's Medical Research Division. They wanted her to lead a groundbreaking study that could revolutionize cancer treatment through quantum imaging. The catch? She'd need to be in Boston for 6 months. Upstairs, she could hear Anson's voice floating from his home office, deep in another late-night conference call with Asian investors. 2-year-old Luna's laughter echoed from the nursery, where her nanny was trying to coax her into bed. Another night when both parents were too busy changing the world to tuck in their own daughter. Quantum anomaly detected in primary processors, the lab's AI announced suddenly, requiring immediate attention. Madeline's fingers flew over the holographic controls, but nothing responded. Then she heard familiar footsteps behind her. "You need to reverse the polarity on the secondary array," Anson's voice was tight with exhaustion, "like we used to do in the early days." "I know how to handle quantum anomalies," she snapped, then immediately regretted her tone. "I'm sorry, long day." "Long year," he corrected, running a hand through his disheveled hair. His next words froze her. "The Singapore team mentioned they spoke with you about our quantum imaging protocols." Madeline's hands stilled on the controls. "They reached out for consultation." "Yes, consultation." Anger crept into his voice. "Madeline, they're our biggest competitors in Asia. You gave them access to proprietary technology?" "I gave them access to my technology," she cut in. "The neural network architecture I developed before we even met, which we refined together using quantum leap resources." "Resources? Is that all our marriage is now? A corporate resource allocation problem?" Their raised voices triggered a cascade failure in the quantum processors. Warning lights flashed as years of research teetered on the brink of deletion. In the old days, they would have moved in perfect sync to save it. Now they stumbled over each other, their once perfect rhythm shattered. "Mama? Daddy?" Luna's small voice came from the lab doorway. She stood there in her quantum dot pajamas, the ones that usually pulsed soothingly with her parents' heartbeats. Tonight, they flickered erratically, reflecting the discord in the room. The sight of their daughter snapped them into action. Together they managed to stabilize the processors, but the moment Luna was back in bed, the tension returned. "MIT offered me a position," Madeline said quietly, "leading their quantum medical division." "Boston?" Anson's laugh was bitter. "Why not the moon? It would have about the same impact on our family." "Family?" Now it was Madeline's turn for bitter laughter. "When was the last time you made it to Luna's quantum dance class? Or read her bedtime stories about particle physics? I'm building a global company, creating opportunities for brilliant minds everywhere, while missing our daughter's brilliant mind growing up right here." The quantum processors hummed ominously, their frequencies matching the discord in the room. A shelf of awards, their awards earned together, trembled slightly. "I got another call from New York Presbyterian," Madeline continued, her voice tight. "They've successfully replicated our imaging technology. They're using it in pediatric surgery now, saving children's lives." "You gave them our protocols too?" Anson's face darkened. Do you have any idea what that does to our market position? Market position? Madeline's voice rose dangerously. Children are alive because of this technology. Isn't that worth more than profit margins? Nothing works without profit. How do we fund research? How do we develop new technologies? How do we... A crash from upstairs silenced them both. They raced to Luna's room to find her trying to recreate their quantum imaging system with her toys, tears streaming down her face. I wanted to make the stars dance like before, she sobbed, when you and Daddy made them together. But they won't dance anymore. The sight of their daughter, desperately trying to recreate the harmony they'd lost, cracked something deep in both parents. The stars still dance, sweet girl, Madeline soothed, gathering Luna close. They just dance differently now. No! Luna's scientific mind rejected the explanation. Quantum entanglement is forever. You said so in the stories. Anson knelt beside them, his hand automatically finding Madeline's shoulder before pulling back. Sometimes even quantum particles need space to find their best configuration. Later that night, after Luna finally slept, they stood in their private observatory. The quantum dot constellations they'd created together swirled overhead, but their patterns seemed wrong somehow, discordant. I got an offer too, Anson said quietly, to expand Quantum Leap into emerging markets, full access to Asian quantum computing development. When were you going to tell me? When were you going to tell me about MIT? The silence between them crackled with unspoken accusations. Through the observatory's windows, Silicon Valley glittered like a circuit board come to life. Somewhere out there, their dreams were pulling them in opposite directions. We promised we'd change the world together, Madeline whispered, touching her quantum dot pendant. Maybe that's the problem, Anson replied, his voice heavy. We're so focused on changing the world, we forgot to preserve our own. The next weeks became a dance of avoidance. They worked in shifts in the lab, coordinated Luna's schedule through their AI assistant, passed like quantum particles unable to occupy the same space. The breaking point came during Luna's quantum physics playgroup. The children were demonstrating their understanding of entanglement using toy particles, when Luna suddenly announced, My mama and daddy's particles used to dance together, but now they're in quantum decoherence. That's when love gets measured wrong and falls apart. The other parents' awkward silence was deafening. That night, as they put Luna to bed together for the first time in weeks, the weight of their failure hung heavy between them. We're hurting her, Madeline said quietly, watching their daughter clutch her quantum particle plushies. We're hurting each other, Anson added, his hand hovering near hers before pulling away. The quantum dot constellations above Luna's bed flickered weakly, their once perfect synchronization falling into chaos. Like their marriage, like their partnership, like the brilliant collaboration that had revolutionized science, everything was decaying into quantum uncertainty. Later that night, Madeline found Anson in the lab, staring at their first quantum processor. Remember when we built this? He asked without turning. We were so sure we could solve any equation together. Maybe some equations don't have perfect solutions, she replied, her heart breaking. Maybe sometimes the best we can do is acknowledge when a system is no longer stable. The quantum processors hummed their mournful agreement as husband and wife stood in their failing field of dreams, watching years of perfect synchronization decay into separate quantum states. Above them, in her bedroom, Luna slept fitfully beneath stars that no longer danced in harmony. And in the basement lab that had once birthed revolutionary love and science, two brilliant minds finally faced the first quantum truth they couldn't solve together. Chapter 7. Breaking Point. The storm that broke over Silicon Valley that night seemed to mirror the tempest building inside the Gordon Ross mansion. Thunder rattled the quantum processors in their basement lab, while lightning illuminated the growing chasm between two brilliant minds that had once shared a single frequency. Luna's quantum dot nightlight flickered erratically, reflecting the emotional turbulence saturating the house. At just 2 years old, she had developed an uncanny ability to sense the discord in her parents' quantum frequencies, and tonight, every indicator was flashing red. Madeline stood in her private office, staring at the holographic display that would change everything. The New York Quantum Research Center's final offer pulsed in the air before her: complete autonomy, unprecedented funding, and a chance to make their medical imaging technology freely available to hospitals worldwide. The deadline: midnight. In his own office down the hall, Anson faced a different crisis. Quantum Leap's Asian expansion had hit devastating regulatory hurdles. Their competitors were claiming patent infringement on the very technology he and Madeline had developed together. Patents she had recently helped them understand. Quantum anomaly detected in primary systems, the House AI announced. Emotional frequencies exceeding stable parameters. The warning came too late. As if synchronized by their shared tension, both scientists arrived at Luna's nursery door simultaneously, their daughter's cries pulling them like entangled particles. "I've got her," they said in unison, then stopped, the once sweet synchronicity now bitter on their tongues. Luna stood in her crib, tears streaming down her face as her quantum dot pajamas pulsed with distress signals. The constellations they had programmed together swirled chaotically overhead, matching the turmoil below. "Stars fighting," Luna whimpered, pointing up. "Make them dance nice again." The simple request shattered something in both parents. They had spent years making quantum particles dance in perfect harmony, yet couldn't maintain the rhythm of their own love. "They're not fighting, sweet girl," Madeline tried to soothe, lifting Luna into her arms. "Sometimes stars need to—" "Don't!" Anson interrupted sharply. "Don't use quantum mechanics to justify what's happening here." "What would you prefer?" Madeline's voice took on a dangerous edge. "Corporate metaphors? Profit and loss statements for a failing marriage?" "Mama sad," Luna observed, touching Madeline's face. "Daddy angry, particles all wrong." Their daughter's innocent assessment hit harder than any scientific critique. The quantum processors hummed ominously below, their frequencies matching the discord above. "We need to talk," Anson said quietly, his CEO voice slipping into place like armor. "After Luna sleeps." But their daughter, brilliant even at 2, sensed the weight of the moment. "No sleep! Fix quantum love first." The phrase, one they had used so often in their bedtime stories, cracked their professional veneers. Tears slipped down Madeline's cheeks as Anson's hands trembled at his sides. It took an hour to settle Luna, both parents maintaining a fragile truce as they performed their once fluid bedtime routine. When she finally drifted off, clutching her quantum particle plushies, they withdrew to their basement lab, the heart of their revolution now the site of its end. "I found your searches," Anson began without preamble. "Apartment listings in New York, school recommendations for Luna. You were planning this for months." "Like you planned the Asian expansion," Madeline countered. "Using insights from my research I shared with you in confidence, not as your corporate asset. Everything I've done has been to protect what we built." His voice rose despite himself. "To ensure our work reaches those who need it most. Through exclusive contracts, behind paywalls, the Anson I married wanted to democratize quantum computing, not monetize it. The Anson you married was naive. You can't change the world without capital, without infrastructure, without selling your soul." The words hung in the air like charged particles. Above them, Luna stirred restlessly, her quantum sensors picking up the emotional surge. The processors around them began to whine, their quantum states destabilizing under the emotional onslaught. "Primary quantum coherence failing," the AI warned. Recommend immediate stabilization protocol. Once, they would have moved in perfect sync to save their life's work. Now they stood frozen, watching years of shared dreams teeter on the edge of collapse. I got another offer today, Madeline said quietly, one you don't know about. The quantum processors screamed as she explained MIT's proposal. Full research autonomy, collaboration with the New York Center, and a chance to make their medical technology freely available worldwide. Everything we dreamed of, she continued, her voice breaking. Everything except me, Anson finished. His green eyes, once her favorite view in any reality, now looked at her like she was a stranger. Except our family, except the life we built. The life we built is already broken. The words burst from her like a quantum explosion. Look at us. We haven't worked together in months. We communicate through AIs and assistants. Luna's quantum pajamas show more emotion than we do. As if summoned by her words, their daughter's cry pierced the night. But for the first time in their marriage, neither moved. The sound hung between them like their last shared frequency, slowly decaying into silence. I can't do this anymore, Madeline whispered, reaching for her quantum dot pendant, the one that matched their first successful experiment. We're hurting each other, and soon we'll start hurting her. So you're choosing New York? The defeat in his voice was worse than anger. I'm choosing to be true to myself, she corrected gently. Just like you chose Quantum Leap's expansion. We both picked our dreams. We just forgot to make sure they were compatible. The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, the storm began to fade, leaving behind a heavy stillness that felt like the end of an era. I'll have my lawyers draw up the papers, Anson finally said, his CEO voice firmly in place. We can keep this amicable for Luna's sake. Madeline nodded, unable to speak past the quantum entanglement of grief in her throat. She placed her pendant on their first processor, the one they'd built together during their courtship. Some equations, it seemed, had no perfect solutions. As she packed a small bag that night, the quantum dots in her wedding ring, the ones meant to pulse eternally with his, grew dim for the first time. Their perfect synchronization, like their marriage, was decaying into separate states. Luna whimpered in her sleep as Madeline kissed her goodbye. The quantum constellations above her bed swirled in confused patterns, as if searching for the harmony they had lost. The Tesla, she called, was silent as it carried her away from the mansion, away from the quantum lab where they had fallen in love, away from the man who had once been her perfect quantum complement. In her rearview mirror, the lights of their home grew smaller until they were just another constellation in the Silicon Valley sky. Somewhere in that house, their daughter slept under artificial stars, unaware that her universe had just split into parallel realities that could never quite align again. The quantum processors in the basement lab hummed a mournful goodbye, their frequencies dropping into discord as the perfect entanglement of their creators finally, irrevocably, broke apart. Chapter 8. The Separation. The lawyers' offices were deliberately neutral territory, all chrome and glass, with no hint of the quantum technology that had brought Madeline and Anson together. 2-year-old Luna sat in the plush waiting area with Grandma Rose, blissfully focused on her quantum particle plushies, while her parents signed the papers that would divide their once unified world into distinct realities. Joint custody, the lawyer read clinically, with primary physical custody awarded to Dr. Gordon Ross, given the child's age and Dr. Gordon's extensive travel requirements, liberal visitation rights and equal decision-making authority for both parents. Madeline's hand trembled slightly as she signed, her eyes catching on the quantum dot ring she would remove for the last time today. Across the mahogany table, Anson's face was a mask of careful control, but his green eyes betrayed the storm of emotions he was fighting to contain. The division of intellectual property, the lawyer continued. Dr. Gordon Ross retains rights to her quantum neural network patents and medical imaging breakthroughs. Quantum Leap maintains exclusive licensing rights for commercial applications in Asia. Their groundbreaking technology, like their marriage, was being dismantled into clearly defined pieces. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. They, who had unlocked quantum entanglement, could not maintain their own. Luna's laughter floated in from the waiting room, a sound so pure it made both parents flinch. She was telling Grandma Rose about the quantum bedtime stories they used to share, unaware that tonight would be her first night in a new apartment with just Mama, while Dada stayed in their Silicon Valley mansion. The East Coast property transfers to Dr. Gordon Ross, the lawyer droned on. The Silicon Valley estate remains with Dr. Gordon, with arrangements for the quantum laboratory equipment to be— "Stop," Anson interrupted suddenly, his voice rough. "Just stop for a moment." He stood, pacing to the window that overlooked the San Francisco Bay. The same view they'd shared on their first date, when the world had seemed full of infinite possibilities. "Are we really doing this?" he asked softly, not turning around. "Dividing up our life like quantum states to be measured and separated?" Madeline's throat tightened. "We already did it," she whispered. "We've been doing it for months. This is just making it official." The truth of her words hung heavy in the air. They had already separated their research, their dreams, their daily routines. The papers were just the final measurement, collapsing their superposition of marriage and independence into defined states. Luna's voice carried again from the waiting room. "When can we go home?" "I want to show Mama and Dada my new quantum dance." Anson turned back, his face etched with pain. "How do we explain this to her? How do we tell our daughter that the quantum entanglement of our family is breaking down?" "We tell her that Mama and Dada still love her more than all the stars in the universe," Madeline replied, fighting back tears. "That some things change, but that never will." The lawyers waited patiently as the parents collected themselves. This wasn't their first high-profile tech industry divorce, but something about the Gordon-Ross separation felt different. Perhaps it was the genuine love still evident between them, or the brilliant child who kept creating quantum physics games in their waiting room. The signing resumed, each signature another step toward their new reality. When it was done, when the last paper was notarized and filed, they sat in silence for a moment. "Your quantum dot pendant," Anson said finally. "The one you left. I had it reset into a necklace for Luna. I thought, when she's older." "Thank you," Madeline managed. The gesture was so perfectly Anson, finding ways to preserve beauty even in breakdown, thinking of their daughter's future even in their moment of ending. They walked together to the waiting room where Luna greeted them with unrestrained joy. "Mama! Dada! Look what Grandma Rose taught me. It's a quantum superposition dance." Both parents found genuine smiles for their daughter's performance, their hands automatically reaching out to steady her spins. For a moment, muscle memory brought them close enough to feel the old electricity between them. "Time to go, sweet girl," Madeline said gently when the dance finished. "Remember how we talked about your special new room at Mama's new apartment?" Luna's face fell slightly. "But what about my stars? The ones Dada made that dance when I sleep." "I've installed the same system in your new room," Anson assured her quickly, "and added some new constellations. You'll have stars with both Mama and Dada." The elevator ride down was silent except for Luna's chatter about quantum particles and dancing stars. In the lobby, reality hit hard. 2 cars waited. Anson's Tesla would return to Silicon Valley, while Madeline's would take her and Luna to their new apartment in the city. Your things are all set up at the new place, Anson said, his CEO voice slipping as emotion cracked through. I had the quantum security systems upgraded, and there's a direct line to my AI if you need anything. Thank you, Madeline replied softly. Even now he was taking care of them. Even now when everything was broken. Luna looked between her parents, suddenly sensing the finality of the moment. Dada not coming. Not this time, princess. Anson knelt to her level. But I'll see you in 2 days, remember? We're going to do quantum experiments in my lab. Promise. Pinky promise, quantum sealed. Their special oath, one even separation couldn't break. The goodbye was awkward, neither parent sure of the proper protocol. How did you end a quantum entanglement that had produced such a perfect little star? In the end, it was Luna who bridged the gap, insisting on a group hug that brought them together one last time as a family. For a brief moment, they were again the brilliant couple who had revolutionized quantum computing while creating their own personal miracle. Then it was time. Madeline settled Luna into her car seat, carefully arranging her quantum plushies around her. As she closed the door, she found Anson watching them with an expression that would haunt her dreams. "Take care of our quantum star," he said quietly. "Always," she promised. Then, because some things needed to be said, "I didn't stop loving you, Anson. I just couldn't find a way to love you and be true to myself at the same time." "I know," he replied, his voice rough. "That's what makes this so quantum impossible. We're separating because we love each other enough to want the best for each other, even if that means letting go." The drive to their new apartment was filled with Luna's questions about quantum mechanics and family dynamics, each one piercing Madeline's heart. She answered as honestly as she could, preserving the magic of science while acknowledging their new reality. The apartment, when they arrived, was perfect in its preparation. Anson had thought of everything. Luna's room was an exact replica of her nursery, down to the quantum dot constellations. The kitchen was stocked with their favorite foods, and a new quantum computing setup had been installed in what would become Madeline's home office. But as night fell, as Luna finally drifted off to sleep under her new yet familiar stars, Madeline felt the full weight of their separation. The silence was wrong. No hum of the basement quantum processors, no sound of Anson working late in his office. She touched her bare finger where her quantum dot ring had been, feeling its absence like a physical ache. Somewhere across the city, Anson was probably in their old lab, burying himself in work to avoid the emptiness of their mansion. Their quantum entanglement had been measured, observed, and separated into distinct states. Their brilliant collaboration had fractured into parallel paths. Yet as Madeline checked on Luna one last time, watching the quantum dots paint familiar constellations on her daughter's peaceful face, she knew some connections could never be truly broken. They would always be entangled through Luna, their perfect quantum star, and perhaps, in some parallel universe, there was a version of them who had found a way to balance love and ambition, family and dreams, without having to choose between them. But in this reality, in this measured state, they had to learn to exist separately. For Luna's sake, they would find a way to co-parent across the quantum divide they had created. For their own sakes, they would learn to be brilliant alone, instead of revolutionary together. The first night of their separation drew to a close, each parent watching the same stars from different windows, their once perfect synchronization now existing only in the dreams of their sleeping daughter. Chapter 9. 3 years later. The elegant cream envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, its gold embossing catching the sunlight streaming through Madeline's East Coast apartment windows. 5-year-old Luna, already dressed for her advanced science program, noticed her mother's hands trembling as she opened it. "What is it, Mama?" Luna asked, her dark eyes, so like Madeline's own, bright with curiosity. "Is it about quantum particles?" Madeline tried to smile, but her heart was performing complex calculations of its own as she read the invitation. "Mr. Anson Gordon and Ms. Victoria Chen request the honor of your presence at their wedding celebration." "It's an invitation, sweet girl," Madeline managed, her voice steady despite the earthquake happening in her chest. "Your father is getting married." Luna's face lit up. "A wedding? Like in the quantum love stories you and Daddy used to tell me? With pretty dresses and dancing stars?" The innocent question pierced Madeline's heart. Those bedtime stories, where quantum particles found their perfect entangled pairs, had been their family's special tradition. Now Anson would be creating new traditions with Victoria Chen, the brilliant venture capitalist who had been funding Quantum Leap's latest expansions. 3 years had reshaped their lives in ways Madeline could never have calculated. Her Quantum Medical Research Center in New York had revolutionized healthcare accessibility worldwide. The original imaging technology she'd developed with Anson had evolved into something even more groundbreaking under her independent direction. Luna had blossomed too, showing an innate genius that amazed even her brilliant parents. At 5, she was already working on basic quantum computing concepts, switching effortlessly between her father's Silicon Valley lab and her mother's East Coast Research Center. "Can we go, Mama?" Luna was practically bouncing with excitement. "I want to show Daddy my new quantum dance, and Victoria always brings me physics books from Asia." Madeline's throat tightened at the casual mention of Victoria's name. Of course, Luna would know her. Anson had been dating the venture capitalist for the past year, carefully introducing her to their daughter during his custody weeks. "Do you like spending time with Victoria?" Madeline asked carefully, watching her daughter's expression. Luna nodded enthusiastically. "She's smart like you, Mama. She helped me understand quantum entanglement using origami, but—" Her little face grew serious. "She doesn't tell stories like you and Daddy did, and her stars don't dance right." Before Madeline could respond, her quantum-secure phone lit up with Anson's call. Even after 3 years, seeing his name still caused a flutter in her chest that defied all logical explanation. "Hello, Anson," she answered, keeping her voice professional. "Madeline." His voice, still achingly familiar, held a note of uncertainty. "I assume you received the invitation." "Just now. Luna's quite excited about it." "And you?" A pause. "I wanted you to hear it from me first, but the board leaked it to the press yesterday. The media is calling it the tech merger of the year." Madeline bit back a bitter laugh. Once that had been their title, quantum computing's power couple, the brilliant minds who had fallen in love over coffee and equations. "Congratulations," she managed. She's good for Quantum Leap's expansion plans." "That's not why I'm marrying her," Anson said quietly. "I know what it looks like, but—" "You don't owe me explanations anymore," Madeline interrupted. "We're co-parents, nothing more." Luna, who had been pretending not to listen while playing with her quantum particle plushies, chose that moment to call out, "Daddy, are you coming to see my science fair project next week? I used your quantum dot technology to make stars dance like Mama's equations." Their daughter, ever the bridge between their separated quantum states. "Wouldn't miss it for anything, Princess," Anson replied, his voice warming. "And thank you, Madeline, for helping her with the mathematical modeling. The way she combines our different approaches. She's extraordinary." "She is," Madeline agreed softly. Their greatest collaboration, the one thing they had done perfectly together. After arranging the logistics for Luna's upcoming custody switch, Madeline ended the call and sat heavily on their quantum dot-illuminated window seat. Luna immediately climbed into her lap, showing an emotional intelligence that sometimes startled both her parents. "Are you sad, Mama?" she asked, touching Madeline's cheek. "Your quantum frequency feels wobbly, like when my equations don't balance." Madeline hugged her daughter close, breathing in the familiar scent of baby shampoo and something uniquely lunar. Sometimes grown-up quantum states are complicated, sweet girl. But I'm okay, and I'm very happy that you're excited about Daddy's wedding. The next weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Luna insisted on wearing her favorite quantum blue dress to the wedding, the one that sparkled with tiny quantum dots that changed color as she moved. Madeline found herself putting extra care into her own appearance, choosing a sophisticated gown that made her feel armored for the emotional challenge ahead. The media frenzy around the upcoming Gordon Chen wedding was intense. Every tech publication speculated about the merger of Quantum Leap with Victoria's venture capital empire. Some even reached out to Madeline for comment, but she maintained her dignified silence. The night before they were due to fly to California, Madeline found Luna in her room, surrounded by quantum physics books and family photos. "Look, Mama," she pointed to an old picture from their Silicon Valley days. "That's when you and Daddy made the stars dance for the first time. Victoria's stars are pretty, but they don't dance like love anymore." Madeline swallowed hard, remembering the night they had first installed the quantum dot constellations in Luna's nursery. How Anson had programmed them to pulse in time with their quantum heartbeats, creating a symphony of light and love above their daughter's crib. "Different stars dance differently, sweet girl," she said carefully. "Victoria will make new patterns with Daddy, and that's okay." "But what about our patterns?" Luna asked with 5-year-old wisdom. "Will we still be quantum entangled after Daddy marries Victoria?" "Always," Madeline promised, holding her daughter close. "You are the most perfect quantum state that ever existed. A combination of your father's brilliance and my dreams. Nothing can ever change that." As she packed their bags that night, Madeline found herself holding the quantum dot pendant that Anson had reset for Luna. Their daughter wasn't old enough for it yet, but soon she would understand the full story of her parents' love. How it had burned so bright, it changed the world of quantum computing forever. How it had created her, and how sometimes even the most perfect equations needed to be rewritten. The morning of their flight dawned clear and bright. Luna chatted excitedly about seeing her father's quantum lab again, about showing Victoria her new scientific discoveries, about dancing under the stars at the wedding. Madeline smiled and nodded, but her mind was performing calculations of its own. In less than 24 hours, she would watch the man she had never stopped loving marry someone else. She would sit in the audience with their brilliant daughter, maintaining the careful balance they had achieved as co-parents, while her heart performed quantum impossibilities in her chest. As their plane took off toward California, toward a wedding that would rewrite the final variables of their shared equation, Madeline held Luna's hand and tried to remember that some particles remained entangled across any distance. Their love had created something eternal in Luna, even if their own quantum dance had ended. The San Francisco skyline appeared through the clouds, and Luna pressed her face to the window in excitement. "Look, Mama, we're almost there. Do you think Daddy's stars still remember how to dance with yours?" Madeline closed her eyes, feeling the weight of past and future pressing against her quantum heart. Some dances, sweet girl, never really end. They just change their pattern. The plane descended toward a weekend that would test every quantum state of her heart, every calculation of her mind, and every promise she had made to put their daughter's happiness first. Silicon Valley waited below, ready to host another quantum union, but this time Madeline would be watching from the audience, holding their daughter's hand, as the man who had once been her perfect quantum complement found a new frequency to dance to. Chapter 10. The Wedding That Wasn't the Grand Plaza. Hotel's ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and white roses, but the elegant decorations felt cold compared to the quantum warmth of Madeline's memories. 3 years ago, she and Anson had exchanged vows under dancing stars and cherry blossoms. Now she sat in the back row, holding 5-year-old Luna's hand, preparing to watch him marry someone else. "Mama, look at all the pretty flowers!" Luna twirled in her quantum blue dress, the embedded dots shifting colors with her movement. "But where are the dancing stars? Daddy always says quantum weddings need dancing stars." Madeline smoothed her daughter's curls, an exact match to her own. "This is a different kind of wedding, sweet girl." Victoria preferred traditional decorations. The ballroom was filling with Silicon Valley's elite, tech giants, venture capitalists, and scientific luminaries. Many nodded respectfully to Madeline, their expressions a mix of curiosity and sympathy. She was, after all, the brilliant Dr. Gordon Ross, whose quantum medical breakthroughs were revolutionizing healthcare. And she was about to watch her ex-husband, the founder of Quantum Leap Technologies, marry one of the most powerful venture capitalists in the industry. Luna fidgeted with her quantum particle plushie, a gift from Anson that never left her side. "Victoria's dress is pretty," she whispered, pointing to a photograph in the wedding program, "but not as pretty as the one in your old pictures, Mama. Your dress had stars in it." Before Madeline could respond, the wedding planner appeared, looking harried. "Dr. Gordon Ross, thank goodness you're here early. Mr. Gordon has been asking, that is, he wondered if you might—" She glanced meaningfully at Luna. Madeline understood immediately. Despite their separation, she and Anson remained perfectly in sync when it came to their daughter. "Pre-wedding jitters?" she asked quietly. The planner nodded gratefully. "He's in the library. Says Luna always helps him solve impossible equations." "Can we go see Daddy?" Luna bounced excitedly. "I want to show him how my quantum dots change color just like his old ones." Madeline hesitated only a moment before standing. They found Anson in the hotel's wood-paneled library, looking devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, but with an unfamiliar tension in his shoulders. The moment he saw Luna, his face lit up with genuine joy. "There's my quantum princess." He scooped her up, inhaling the familiar scent of her curls. "I should have known you'd wear the perfect quantum blue. Like your wedding with Mama," Luna beamed. "Remember how the stars danced? Can we make Victoria's stars dance too?" Madeline saw Anson's smile falter slightly. Their eyes met over Luna's head, and for a moment, the years fell away. She remembered how he had spent weeks programming those quantum dot constellations, making them pulse in time with their heartbeats. "Some things are once in a lifetime, sweet girl," Anson said softly, still holding Madeline's gaze. "Like the perfect quantum entanglement that created you." The moment was broken by Victoria Chen's arrival. She looked elegant in her designer gown, but her expression tightened at finding her soon-to-be husband with his ex-wife and daughter. "Anson, darling, we're about to begin." Her voice was perfectly controlled. "Hello, Luna, Dr. Gordon Ross." "Victoria!" Luna wriggled down from her father's arms. "Look at my quantum dress. Daddy says it's like the ones he used to make, but Mama helped me add new equations to make it change colors." Something flickered in Victoria's eyes, a glimpse of the insecurity that even her billions couldn't erase. After all, how could she compete with the quantum legacy that Anson and Madeline had created together? "It's lovely, dear," she said stiffly. "Anson, the guests are waiting." As they left the library, Luna's voice carried clearly. "But Daddy, you promised to show me the new quantum algorithm before your party. You said it was almost as beautiful as the ones you made with Mama." Victoria's steps faltered slightly, but she maintained her composure as she headed for the bridal suite. Madeline caught Anson's apologetic glance and shook her head slightly. No apology needed for their daughter's innocent honesty. The ceremony began right on schedule. Victoria floated down the aisle in her couture gown, looking every bit the powerful tech world aristocrat she was. Anson stood at the altar, his expression carefully neutral, though Madeline noticed his hands were clasped tightly behind his back, his tell for deep uncertainty. Luna sat quietly beside Madeline, unusually still as she watched the proceedings. But as the minister began to speak, she suddenly pointed at the crystal chandeliers overhead. "Look, Mama, the lights are making quantum patterns like in Daddy's lab. Remember when you and Daddy made them dance at your wedding?" Her clear voice carried through the hushed ballroom. Guests shifted uncomfortably as Victoria's smile froze. Anson, at the altar, seemed to sway slightly. "And Daddy," Luna continued excitedly, "you're wearing the same quantum dot cufflinks you wore when you married Mama, the ones that matched her ring." The minister cleared his throat uncomfortably, but Luna wasn't finished. Her 5-year-old enthusiasm couldn't be contained. "Victoria, did you know Daddy used to make stars dance? Real quantum stars? He and Mama made them for me when I was a baby, and they'd pulse with their heartbeats. Can you make stars dance too?" Victoria's composure cracked. "Anson," she said tightly, "perhaps we should continue this ceremony without the commentary on your previous marriage." But Anson wasn't listening. His face had gone pale, his breathing irregular. Madeline recognized the signs immediately, the same stress response he'd shown during their most challenging quantum experiments. "Luna," she whispered urgently, "sweetheart, remember what we said about indoor voices? But Mama, I'm just telling Victoria about quantum love. Like in your bedtime stories, remember? When two particles find their perfect entangled pair and dance forever, even if they're far apart." The last thread of Victoria's patience snapped. "Enough! This is my wedding, not a quantum physics lesson from my fiancé's past." Her harsh tone made Luna shrink back against Madeline. The sudden movement caught Anson's attention, and he turned sharply, his protective instincts flaring. That's when it happened. The stress, the emotional weight, the sight of his daughter's hurt expression, it all proved too much. Anson's knees buckled, and he collapsed at the altar. The ballroom erupted in chaos. Victoria's cry of alarm mixed with guests' gasps, and Luna's frightened, "Daddy!" Madeline was moving before she could think, her body remembering every moment they'd worked together in crisis. She reached Anson first, her medical training taking over as she checked his vital signs. "Someone call an ambulance," she ordered, her voice cutting through the panic. "Luna, baby, stay with Grandma Rose. Anson, can you hear me? Follow my voice, just like we used to track quantum signals." Victoria hovered uncertainly, her perfect wedding dissolving into a medical emergency. Should we continue when he's stable?" But Anson's eyes had opened, focusing first on Luna's worried face, in the crowd, then on Madeline's hands supporting his head. His voice was weak but clear. "No more pretending. I can't marry someone else when every quantum particle in my body is still entangled with its original pair." The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria's face went through a complex series of emotions before settling on resigned dignity. She slipped her engagement ring off and placed it carefully beside Anson's head. "I've always known," she said quietly. "I hoped I could compete with a quantum ghost, but your daughter's innocent truth-telling proved what everyone else already knew. You never stopped loving her." As paramedics arrived and began preparing Anson for transport, Luna broke away from Grandma Rose and ran to her father's side. "Daddy, are you quantum okay? Do you need Mama's special equations to feel better?" Anson managed a weak smile. "I think I do, Princess. I think I've needed them for 3 years." Madeline felt tears stinging her eyes as she helped the paramedics stabilize him. The quantum dot pendant she had left behind years ago suddenly felt warm against Luna's chest, where Anson had reset it for their daughter. The wedding that wasn't ended with the bride departing in dignified silence, while the groom was rushed to the hospital with his ex-wife and daughter by his side. And somewhere in the quantum fabric of reality, Particles that had been forcibly separated began their slow dance back toward natural entanglement, because some equations, like some loves, had only one perfect solution, no matter how long it took to calculate. Chapter 11. Truth and Reconciliation. The private hospital suite hummed with advanced medical equipment, their soft beeps a poor substitute for the quantum processors that usually surrounded Anson Gordon. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, San Francisco Bay glittered under the afternoon sun, but his attention was fixed on the small family scene unfolding by his bedside. Luna sat cross-legged on the hospital bed, her quantum blue dress still sparkling as she showed her father her latest equations. Madeline stood by the window, pretending to check her phone while actually watching them in the reflection. 3 years of separation hadn't diminished her ability to read every micro-expression that crossed Anson's face. "See, Daddy?" Luna pointed to her child-sized tablet. "I combined your quantum dot formulas with Mama's medical imaging algorithms. The particles dance like stars, but also help doctors see inside people's hearts." "That's brilliant, Princess," Anson smiled weakly. The cardiac episode at his almost wedding had left him pale but alert. "Just like your mother, always finding ways to make science help people." Madeline felt his eyes on her, but kept her gaze on the bay. The past 24 hours had been a whirlwind of emergency rooms, worried family members, and media speculation about the tech world's most dramatic non-wedding. "Dr. Gordon Ross?" A nurse appeared at the door. "The cardiac specialist would like to review some test results with you, and there are reporters in the lobby asking for statements about yesterday's events." "I'll handle the press," Madeline said automatically, years of protecting their family's privacy kicking in. "Luna, stay with Daddy while I talk to the doctors." "Actually," Anson's voice was quiet but firm, "I'd like to speak with you first, Madeline. Luna, would you show your amazing quantum dance to Nurse Sarah for a few minutes?" Luna bounced off the bed excitedly. "It's based on electron orbital patterns. Come on, Nurse Sarah, I'll teach you." As their daughter's voice faded down the hallway, tension filled the hospital room. Madeline finally turned from the window, facing the man she'd almost watched marry someone else. "The doctors say it was stress-induced," she said professionally. "Your blood pressure, it wasn't stress," Anson interrupted. "It was quantum clarity." "Anson, let me finish, please." He struggled to sit up straighter. "When Luna started talking about our wedding, about the dancing stars and quantum love, it was like every probability wave in my universe collapsed into a single truth. I've been trying to force myself into the wrong quantum state." Madeline's scientific mind wanted to dismiss this as medication-induced romanticism, but her heart recognized the raw honesty in his voice. "You were about to marry Victoria," she reminded him gently. "A brilliant woman who could have helped Quantum Leap expand globally." "That's exactly my point." His voice strengthened with passion. "I was thinking like a CEO instead of a quantum physicist, trying to calculate success through traditional metrics when I should have remembered what we proved years ago, that the most powerful forces in the universe can't be measured in conventional ways." He reached for her hand, and Madeline found herself stepping closer, drawn by the familiar pull between them. "I never stopped loving you," he confessed. "I tried. I threw myself into work, into expansion plans, into a relationship that looked perfect on paper. But every time I walk into my quantum lab, every time I see our daughter combine our theories like they were always meant to work together, I'm reminded that some equations have only one right answer." "Anson," Madeline's voice cracked slightly. "We can't just ignore the problems that separated us. Your focus on corporate expansion, my need for independent research. But that's just it." He sat up fully now, his green eyes bright with the same intensity that had first captured her heart. "Look what we've achieved separately. You've revolutionized medical imaging. I've made quantum computing accessible worldwide. We didn't need to choose between our dreams. We just needed to learn how to support each other's independent orbits while maintaining our quantum entanglement. Before Madeline could respond, Luna's voice carried from the hallway. And this is how electrons dance when they're in love. Mama and Daddy explained it in their bedtime stories. Both parents smiled involuntarily, their eyes meeting in shared appreciation of their daughter's innocent wisdom. She never lost faith in our quantum love story, Anson said softly. Even when we did. A commotion in the hallway drew their attention. The hospital's PR team was trying to manage a growing crowd of reporters, all eager for details about the collapsed wedding and the apparent reunion of quantum computing's former power couple. I need to make a statement, Anson decided, swinging his legs off the bed. Help me up. You need to rest, Madeline protested, but she found herself supporting him anyway, their bodies remembering years of working in perfect synchronization. What I need, he said as they walked slowly toward the door, is to tell the truth. No more corporate calculations, no more safe decisions, just quantum honesty. The hospital's conference room was packed with press when they entered. Luna ran to them immediately, taking both their hands in a gesture that wasn't lost on the photographers. Standing together, they looked like the family they had once been. Might be again. Anson's voice was steady as he addressed the cameras. Yesterday, I experienced what doctors are calling a cardiac episode, but the truth is, my heart was simply refusing to proceed with a quantum impossibility. He squeezed Luna's hand before continuing. 3 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I let corporate ambition and traditional metrics of success blind me to the most revolutionary discovery I'd ever made. That love, like quantum entanglement, transcends normal laws of space and time. Madeline felt tears threatening as he turned to face her directly. Doctor, Madeline Gordon-Ross isn't just my daughter's mother or my former research partner. She is my perfect quantum complement, the brilliant mind that challenges me to be better, the heart that reminds me why we do this work in the first place. I lost sight of that once. I won't make that mistake again. The room erupted with questions, but Luna's voice cut through the chaos. Running to stand in front of her mother, she pleaded with all the pure wisdom of a 5-year-old quantum genius. Please, Mama, accept Daddy's apology. The stars want to dance together again. I can see it in your quantum frequencies. The reporters fell silent, cameras capturing this unscripted moment of truth. Madeline looked at her daughter's hopeful face, then at Anson's sincere eyes, and felt the last of her carefully constructed walls crumbling. Our quantum entanglement was never really broken, she admitted softly. We just stopped believing in our own equations. The media went wild, but the small family barely noticed. Luna hugged her parents' legs, forcing them closer together as Anson tentatively reached for Madeline's hand. I can't promise I won't still be ambitious, he whispered. But I can promise to remember what matters most, this quantum dance we do together, all 3 of us. And I'll still need my independence, Madeline replied, my own research, my own projects. Independent orbits, he nodded, maintained by quantum love instead of corporate contracts. Luna tugged at their joined hands. Does this mean the stars will dance at home again? Both homes? Looking down at their brilliant daughter, then at each other, they shared a smile that felt like coming home to their perfect quantum state. I think, sweet girl, Madeline said softly, it means we might only need one home again, one set of dancing stars. With upgraded quantum dot algorithms, Anson added, his eyes never leaving Madeline's face. Because some patterns get even more beautiful when you rediscover them. The press conference dissolved into a family moment as Luna launched into an elaborate quantum dance of joy, her dress sparkling like their renewed hopes. And in that hospital conference room, Surrounded by flashing cameras and beeping medical equipment, two brilliant minds finally relearned what their daughter had never forgotten: that quantum love, once created, could never truly be destroyed. It could only be transformed, evolved, and made stronger by the very obstacles that once threatened to break it. Chapter 12. Full Circle. 1 month after the wedding that wasn't, the San Francisco Conference Center hummed, with an energy that had nothing to do with its quantum processes. The same auditorium where Madeline and Anson had first met was transformed into something magical, a perfect blend of science and romance that could only come from the minds of two quantum pioneers and their precocious daughter. Luna had insisted on being the wedding planner. Not just any wedding, she had declared with 5-year-old authority. A quantum wedding, where all the patterns come full circle, like electron orbits returning home. The result was breathtaking. Quantum dot constellations danced across the ceiling, programmed by Anson to mirror the exact stellar configuration from the night they first met. Instead of traditional flowers, quantum blue mystique orchids floated in transparent spheres, their colors shifting in response to the emotions of nearby guests. A breakthrough application of their medical imaging technology that Luna had suggested. "See, Mama?" Luna twirled in her flower girl dress, which sparkled with embedded quantum sensors. The flowers turn brightest blue when hearts are truly in love. Science doesn't lie. In the bridal suite, Madeline stood before a mirror, her heart performing complex calculations of joy. Her gown was a masterpiece of quantum engineering and elegant design, ivory silk embedded with microscopic quantum dots that made her appear to glow from within. The patterns of light followed her movement like loving caresses, a visual representation of Anson's groundbreaking work in quantum accessibility. "My quantum star," her father said softly, entering with tears in his eyes. "When you first told me you were remarrying Anson, I worried history would repeat itself. But watching you these past weeks, seeing how you've both grown, we needed the separation," Madeline realized. Like quantum particles requiring distance to understand their true entanglement, we had to learn who we were independently before we could come back together stronger. A soft knock heralded Luna's return. "Daddy's surprise is ready," she announced excitedly. "He said it's the most important quantum experiment ever." The ceremony began unlike any other. As guests settled into their seats, their collective gasps echoed through the auditorium. Above them, the quantum dot constellations began telling a story. Their story. Scientific formulas morphed into scenes from their life together, each equation transforming into a memory. Their first meeting became a dance of particle physics. Their original wedding appeared as interweaving quantum waves. Luna's birth showed as a perfect fusion of their most brilliant theories. Even their separation and reunion were there, represented by quantum entanglement patterns that proved some connections could never truly be broken. Then Anson appeared at the altar, looking devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo. But it was the device in his hands that caught Madeline's attention, a quantum processor, unlike anything they'd built before. As the wedding march began, played on instruments tuned to quantum frequencies, Madeline walked toward her future. Luna danced ahead, scattering quantum petals that left trails of light in her wake. With each step, the quantum dots in Madeline's dress resonated with the processor Anson held, creating a visual symphony of their love story. When she reached him, Anson's eyes shone with tears and triumph. "Ready for the experiment of a lifetime," he whispered. Instead of traditional vows, they had prepared something unprecedented. Together with Luna, they activated the quantum processor. The entire auditorium transformed into a quantum visualization chamber, surrounding their guests in a 3-dimensional display of pure mathematical beauty. 3 years ago, Anson began, his voice carrying clearly through the quantum-enhanced acoustics, I forgot the most important equation we ever solved. I thought success meant corporate expansion and global influence. But our brilliant daughter reminded me that the most revolutionary discovery was standing right in front of me. He turned to the audience. What you're seeing is a real-time quantum visualization of love. Every light pattern, every color shift is powered by actual quantum measurements of human emotion. For years, Madeline and I tried to separate our scientific brilliance from our personal love. Today, we're proving that the most powerful innovations come from embracing both. Madeline's turn came, and she spoke from her heart while her mind appreciated the quantum beauty surrounding them. In quantum mechanics, we learn that the act of observation changes results. For too long, we observed our love through the lens of traditional success. Today, we're choosing to see it through quantum eyes, as something that transcends normal laws, that grows stronger through entanglement, that exists in multiple beautiful states simultaneously. Luna stepped forward then, her dress creating ripples in the quantum field around them. "And I am the proof," she declared proudly, "the perfect quantum computation of their love. Today, we're not just getting married, we're proving that love is the strongest force in the quantum universe." The quantum processor hummed to life, responding to their combined electromagnetic fields as they exchanged rings made of quantum-engineered materials that would forever resonate with each other's unique frequencies. The visualization reached its crescendo. Every quantum dot in the room pulsed in perfect harmony with their heartbeats. The mathematical beauty of their love became visible to all, proving that the most powerful force in the universe could be measured, observed, and celebrated through science. "By the power of quantum mechanics and the laws of human love," the officiant smiled, "I pronounce you once again husband and wife." Their kiss sent ripples through the quantum field, creating patterns of light that would be studied by scientists for years to come. But in that moment, all they felt was the perfect synchronization of two hearts that had found their way home through the infinite possibilities of space and time. The reception that followed was a celebration of both science and love. Luna insisted on giving a speech, her natural brilliance shining as she explained quantum entanglement using her parents' love story as the perfect example. "See how the quantum flowers turn deepest blue around them?" she pointed out. "That's because their love resonates at the perfect frequency. Even when they were apart, their quantum states remained entangled. Science proved what my heart always knew." Later that night, as their guests danced under quantum stars, Anson held Madeline close. "You know what this means," he murmured in her ear. "Our quantum entanglement is once again legally binding in all possible universes." Madeline laughed, the sound making the quantum dots in her dress pulse with joy. "I love you, you quantum romantic. And I love you, my brilliant star," he whispered back. "Thank you for giving our equation another chance to find its perfect solution." Luna danced around them, her dress leaving trails of light that intertwined with the patterns from their own quantum formal wear. The three of them together created something more beautiful than any scientific breakthrough, a family reunited through the perfect balance of brilliant minds and loving hearts. As midnight approached, the quantum processor hummed one final song. Above them, the constellations rearranged themselves into the mathematical formula for eternal love. An equation that Luna had discovered while playing with her parents' old research notes. "Look!" she pointed excitedly. "The stars are dancing like they did in all our bedtime stories. But now they're dancing forever, right?" Madeline and Anson shared a look that contained infinite possibilities, all of them beautiful. "Forever," they promised in unison. And in that moment, as quantum lights danced around the reunited family, they proved that love wasn't just a feeling or an equation. It was the force that bound the universe together, that transcended time and space, that could be measured in quantum pulses but felt in human hearts. Their story had come full circle, proving that some quantum states, once perfectly aligned, could never truly be separated. They had found their way back to their optimal configuration. Brilliant minds, loving hearts, and a precocious daughter who had inherited the best of both. The quantum dots pulsed one final time, casting their light into the future that stretched before them, a future bright with promise, innovation, and the unshakable certainty that love, like quantum entanglement, only grew stronger with every measurement of its infinite power. Subscribe if you liked.